Hello friends, welcome back to another reading vlog. This is an extra special reading vlog in which I'm going to be showing some old footage of me horseback riding and kind of talking about my experience with horseback riding, in addition to reading and giving my full thoughts on Girls and Their Horses by Eliza Jane Brazier. I'm so excited to be reading this. This book popped up on a recommended page for me a couple months ago, and as soon as I read the synopsis, I'm like, I need to buy this and make a video about it. If you didn't know, which I probably haven't even talked about it in any of my videos, but I was a major horse girl back in the day. I probably rode horses for about 10 to 15 years of my life, and it was a really big thing for me. Like, I loved horses, and I still really like horses, but I definitely stopped horseback riding because I was getting a lot of fat shaming at the places that I was riding, and I do recognize that bigger people can cause harm to horses when they're riding because of the weight, but I was being sized appropriately on the horses that I was riding. Horses can typically carry about 20% of their own body weight, so I can't do math, but basically if a horse is like 1,500 to 2,000 pounds, it can definitely handle someone who's maybe a little bit bigger. So I was definitely riding size appropriate horses at the time, but I was just getting a lot of fat shaming from my riding instructor, the other girls who were riding at the barn, and it just became a very toxic place for me. So I stopped horseback riding, but I do really want to go back to that someday. I loved horseback riding. I loved the connection I had formed with some of the horses that I was riding, and I loved it. And so once I quit horseback riding, I did go back to my original barn, which is a nonprofit barn that has this program for disabled children to ride horses as a form of therapy. So I did help with that. So I would like go grab the horses from the pasture, bring them in, brush them, groom them, tack them up, and help the kids ride the horses and chat with them. And I loved participating in that program. It was so much fun. I think it was called Helping Hooves. It was awesome, and the kids were so cool, and it was just awesome to see them riding, and they were just so passionate about horses. It just reminded me of when I was their age. I think they were like, maybe the youngest was maybe like 9 or 10 and the oldest was probably like 16. And it was just so fun to see them be so passionate about horses. So I did that for several years and loved it. But then of course, high school came into the picture and college, and I just kind of stopped doing all horse related things. But I still kind of reminisce on those times. So I just really enjoy horses and stuff. And so when I saw this adult thriller coming out that was about like horse girls and like the pretentiousness of the horse world, I'm like, I gotta read this. So to read y'all the synopsis, it says, set in the glamorous competitive world of show jumping, a novel about the girls who ride, their cutthroat mothers, and a suspicious death at a horse show. So it says, when the rich Parker family moves to an exclusive community in the heart of Southern California, they believe it's their chance at a fresh start. Heather Parker is determined to give her daughters the life she never had, starting with horses. She signs them up for riding lessons at Ranchero Santa Fe Equestrian, where horses are a lifestyle. Heather becomes a barn mom, part of a group of wealthy women who hang out at the stables, drink wine, and prepare their daughters for competition. It's not long before the Parker family is fully enmeshed in the horse world, from mean girl cliques to barn romances and dark secrets. With the end of summer horse show fast approaching, the pressure is on, and these mothers will stop at nothing to give their daughters everything they deserve. I'm so excited for this, and I'm also really excited to read this in particular because the author herself is a horseback rider. She is very familiar with horses. I believe I read her profile and said that she used to compete competitively in show jumping and is also a trainer. I feel like the author's going to do an amazing job of having the horse aspect be realistic, because there are so many times I will read a book that has horses in it and I just want to scream because of how inaccurate it is. So I look forward to reading this in that regard, but also for the thrilling element. It just sounds so fun. So I will be starting this book tonight and I'm very much looking forward to it. I will try to keep this video as spoiler free as possible. If I do talk about any spoilers at all, I will put up something on the screen, but this should be a spoiler free video. I'm going to try my hardest to keep it that way because I want this video to be accessible for everyone and not have you have to read this to watch. But anyways, so looking forward to this. I just cannot wait. So I will share some more horse stories later in the vlog. I just kind of wanted to introduce the vlog, kind of introduce where I'm at with horseback riding at the moment. But I have lots of stories and lots of pictures and I don't have very many videos, but I remember asking some of the girls that I would ride with to take some videos for me and they would, so I will pop those in later in the vlog as we go along. But yeah, I'm excited. I feel like this is just kind of nostalgic, like kind of reminiscing on my horseback years. Oh, great times. Anyways, I will chat with you all once I've started the book. Hello friends, it's quite late. It's like almost midnight, but I wanted to give you my initial thoughts on Girls and Their Horses. I'm like 42 pages into it. I'm on chapter 9 and I'm loving this so far. It is bringing me right back to when I was horseback riding, although this is in a very different world of horseback riding than I was in. So to kind of set up the story, we're following the main character Mabel, and her mom Heather grew up riding horses and spending her days at the barn, and her father was able to afford her a horse, and that's where she would spend her summers and her weekends, was horseback riding all the time. And then her father passed away and Heather wasn't able to keep her horse, and ever since she's kind of felt resentful that she has not been able to live out her like horse girl dreams. So she's kind of pushing that dream onto her daughters Piper and Maple. And Piper, who is the elder sister, she's already kind of pushed against her mother and said, no, I'm done horseback riding. I don't want to follow in what your dreams are. And so Mabel, who's younger, she's like 14, she just wants to please her mom. And so she's going through with getting all the clothes and going to this barn that's close by their house. And this barn is like super fancy schmancy. It's like the place where Grand Prix horses are being trained, and all they want to do is win. It is not like a fun little summer camp barn. It's like serious horse power barn. That was a terrible explanation, but basically it's just a very pretentious space. And so Heather and Maple go to this barn and they're not invited. Like, they just show up unannounced and are just poking around and looking at the horses, and this girl comes out and is like, don't touch the horses, like, what are you doing here? And things kind of go from there. And so Heather, who is Maple's mom, was able to convince them to allow them to try out Maple and see if she would be a good fit for the barn. And one of the barn moms who meets Heather thinks that she wants to get her as part of the barn because of their money, because they bought a house. Seriously, they bought a house for $28 million. Like, this guy is loaded that Heather's married to. He's like in money investing or something. So he's made like $100 million or something. It's actually more than that, but like he keeps making more and more money and keeps finding more and more ways to spend it. And I feel like this book's talking a lot about being rich and how maybe, you know, it's not all of what it's cracked up to be. So I am tabbing this. I didn't know if I was going to be, but there's just so many good lines. So the first thing I highlighted was on page 1. So I just want to read this to you. It's not spoilery. Everything that I'll talk about will be non-spoilery, but it says, she came across a lot of people in her job, but there were no people quite like horse people. They shouted if you turned on sirens. They scolded you if you approached the horses. They claimed you were scaring the horses, but the animals were fine as long as people stayed calm. I just thought that was so hilarious and so accurate. Like, I remember at the barn, the last barn that I was writing at, they were so particular about that. Like, don't approach the horse this way, don't touch the horse like that, don't do this, don't do that. It's like, the horse is fine. Like, they're fine. I mean, yeah, there's definitely some things you should never do around horses, but like, horse people are a very specific type of paranoid. And I just thought that was hilariously accurate. I could tell this author has been around horses, which I did mention earlier. And so then there's another little section about a horse that they saw at the barn and describing like how you measure a horse. So if you're unfamiliar, you measure a horse by hands. So typically a hand is like 4 inches. So you can describe a horse as being like 17 hands tall. So it'd be like 17 times 4 inches, and then you'd convert that into inches. So that's how horses are measured. And obviously the taller they are, the higher the hands are. Like, the horse that I was riding the most was usually like 17 or 18 hands. Like, I was riding some pretty tall horses. Because I am tall, and you kind of, you know, size the horse appropriately. But I also rode some like 16 hand horses, so like 16, 17, 18 was kind of my range of horses, but that's a pretty big horse. So going on to the next page, this girl's like freaking out. She's like, you can't be here. Oh my God, are you giving the horses carrots? Don't you know you can't do that? Yeah, it was just hilarious. And then I also highlighted this, which it's just a great quote. It says, being rich in some ways was like being dead. You built your own heaven and then you had to live in it. I just really like that quote. Like, if you're not rich, it's easy to see how wealth can really affect people in some pretty adverse ways. But like, when you are that rich, I just feel like you maybe don't see that. Like, you're so stuck in your own bubble, you don't even notice that kind of thing. But anyways, I'm quite enjoying this, so I'm just getting to the part where Maple's gonna have her first lesson, and we'll see how that goes. I do want to pop in a quick video and do a tiny little chatty bit about my horse riding experience. So like I said, I started riding like pretty young, maybe like 9 or 10. And I started off at like a horse camp, so I would do horse camp every summer, and then in the wintertime I would do lessons. And it was at a very, I wouldn't call it run down, but definitely very like homey barn, and the horses were all rescue horses, so they were all bought secondhand that people were either not taken care of properly or were found on Facebook, and the barn director would go out and check on these horses, find them, buy them, and bring them to the barn. So there was honestly quite a bit of rotation with horses. Not a lot of horses would stay there, because as horses would come in there, they'd kind of get rehabilitated, and then someone would buy the horse. Like, they would keep the horse as a lesson horse or try to train it for something that they could use for their camp. But if the horse didn't turn out to be a good fit for them, they would then kind of get the horse ready for a new owner and then sell that horse. So there were quite a few horses during my time there that would be there for a short period then leave. And of course, some of the horses that I just loved so much were the ones who got sold. But it's actually really funny, because now some of my mom's friends actually have those horses that I just grew up absolutely loving. And of course now they're in like their 30s, so they're quite old and just kind of living out their days. But I just think that's kind of sweet. But anyways, so I would ride at that place forever, and that's where I got tested and passed a few horse classes. So there's so many different disciplines in horseback riding, but I was mainly focused on dressage. That is my favorite thing. But at this particular barn, I wasn't doing that. Like, it's not the type of barn where you get tested for that kind of thing. But I did pass my D1 and D2 in horsemanship. So that's kind of like, D1 is like your basics of like how to groom a horse, how to tack up a horse properly, how to ride a horse, how to like walk, trot, canter, stuff like that. So I passed that, and I believe I passed my D2. I can't remember. I know I got a certificate. I have no clue where it is. It's probably at my parents' house, but I know I did those two. And I just spent like as much time there as I could, and that was also the place I did the Helping Host program, which was amazing. I might even get back into doing that someday if I don't even do horseback riding. I don't know, but anyways, so that's where I started. And then I stopped horseback riding for a little bit because I was kind of in between barns. I tried a few different places. I didn't like the trainers. I wasn't a fan of their style. So I do a lesson here or there. I didn't like those places until I discovered this place that is so tucked away. It's like on this really far away road. It'd take me like 30-45 minutes to get there from my house. And it was gorgeous. There was an indoor arena, an outdoor arena. Every horse had their own stall. There was an indoor tack-up area, and it was like the most bougie horse place I've ever seen. And especially in Alaska, like I just don't expect that, I guess, but that's where I ended up riding for my last couple of years of horseback riding, and I really enjoyed it. The horses that I was riding were awesome. They were really great horses. I think I fell off twice at that barn. I fell off like 6 million times at my first barn because, you know, I was younger. Yeah, I have sustained quite a few injuries from horseback riding, some that will probably not leave my body ever. Like, I have a crooked tailbone now because of falling off a horse and landing on my butt. That was fun. And I also have a giant lump on my right leg from falling off a horse, and my leg was dragged up and over the saddle, and I have this giant like mass on my leg. It's been looked at, and doctors are like, we can't do anything about it. As long as it's not hurting you, it's not bothering anything, but it's definitely noticeable. Like if I'm wearing shorts, you can definitely tell like there's a giant lump on my leg. It's quite unsightly. But yeah, I have so many falling off stories. I don't even know if you want to hear all of them, but I'll tell you the most memorable one was I was riding at my first barn, and I was running a horse named Smokey. He had 2 different colored eyes. He was great. And we were trotting around this corner, and part of the indoor barn had like a gate that like leads to the outside, and they were doing construction in the parking lot, and a bulldozer came driving by, and Smokey just freaked out. He reared up. He went darting to the right at a full gallop, and I'm just holding on for dear life. Like, I was not expecting that. And in the horse world, we call that spooking. When a horse like freaks out like that, he's spooked. So he went galloping, and I'm just hanging on for dear life. And of course, he's nearing the end of the indoor arena because it's not, you know, the biggest area, especially at a full gallop. So he comes like, he's kind of sliding to a stop at this point, but the momentum propelled me back. I fell, like, not head first, but you know, I kind of just like back flopped off of him, landed flat on my back. I couldn't breathe for a solid like 2 minutes. It was great, not really. And yeah, I had the worst bruising, and I was so sore from that. I was like hobbling around like an old lady for like 2 weeks. But I've never broken any bones horseback riding. I did get a concussion once, but that's about it. So horseback riding is definitely a very dangerous sport, and your team member in this sport is a 1500 plus animal who does not speak to you in any capacity, and yet you're trying to communicate and work towards the same goal. So it's definitely not the easiest sport, I think. I feel like that gets really underrated. But anyways, back at the new barn. So that was the barn where I was getting fat shamed quite a bit, and my trainer very vocal about me being overweight, and she would like prescribe me exercises she wanted to do, and she was telling me what my goal weight should be, and she was sizing me appropriately to the horses. Like, I was riding bigger horses that were like draft cross horses, or at least like quarter horses and stuff who could handle my weight. I know I didn't hurt them, but it just really hurt me to be so picked on for my weight. And a lot of the girls at the barn were not the nicest about that either. And there's only one other like bigger girl at the barn, and she had her own horse named Bella, who I did ride a few times. I'll pop in a few pictures, and I would go to her barn and ride Bella, but I only did that twice because after that she wanted me to sign a lease. And reading that lease, because we gave it to like my parents' attorney friend who read through it and I read through it, basically she was gonna have me pay for every single vet bill for that horse. I'm like, are you kidding me? No, this is your horse? So we obviously didn't sign that, and I kind of stopped talking to her and never rode her horse again, but she wanted me to sign that to keep riding her horse. I'm like, no. Do you know how expensive horse vet bills are? Like, extremely expensive. And horses have to get dental work done, they have to get their hooves done by a farrier. Like, absolutely not. That is so expensive. So that never happened. But yeah, this new barn, like, I loved it for a few years, but I definitely did not feel as comfortable there as my first barn. My first barn was just so chill and nice, but it definitely was not a place for me to grow in my horse riding skills. It was very much a beginner based barn, which is totally fine. We need that, you know, as beginner riders, but I was ready to level up my riding, and I did. I did pass a few tests in dressage while at this barn. I'll probably have a video playing or something to show you like my dressage tests that I had filmed. So like, I was doing that kind of thing at this barn, which was great, but I was honestly terrified of cantering, and every time I would canter on a horse, I would fall off. Like, I don't know if it's a balance thing or what, but I could never stay in the saddle. And when the horses would start cantering, I would just feel unbalanced. So I could never get further than walking and trotting, and I wanted to jump. Like, that was the biggest thing I wanted to do, was do like show jumping, but I just kind of stuck to dressage because there's no jumping in that. It's mainly just patterns, and you're doing like walking, trotting, maybe some cantering. So yeah, that was a big ramble, but I do still have all my old riding clothes. I don't know, I might pull them out just to like show you guys. I don't know, maybe not, but it was a fun time in my life. I did enjoy it a lot, but there was a lot of negativity to it, and there was a lot of expenses to it too. My lessons were about $75 a lesson, and I would have one usually every week. So that could add up pretty quickly, but it definitely is cheaper than having a horse, because the barn, the latest barn that I had been at, they were charging $800 a month just to board your horse there, which means that you would like have your horse there at the barn. They would feed the horse, clean out its stall and stuff while the horse was there. I mean, that's $800 a month. That's like half of a house bill. Like, that's ridiculous. So never had a horse. Don't know if I ever will, because they're just so expensive. They're expensive everywhere, but especially in Alaska. Like the hay and all of it. All of it. Horse riding is just wild. But I also find it really cool that my aunt, who is no longer with us, she was really big into horses, and she grew up with horses, and my dad grew up with horses, and she had her own horse, and he was gorgeous. Like, there's pictures of him, and he's just gorgeous, and they would actually be like riding around the property that like I live on now, and this is really cool. Like, I like to think that I got like my horse riding bug from her, and I was just like so horse obsessed. Oh my gosh, if you could have seen my room in like 2010, 2011, it was wild. It was like horses everything. Truly. I had like horse clothes. There was horses in my room. I read horse books. Like, it was truly an obsession. I like to call myself a recovered horse girl, because truly that was just obsessive. Anyways, I'm going to read a little bit more of this before I go to bed. Just wanted to share some stories. I think that was really my main big stories that I had for horseback riding. I didn't mean to tell them all within like the first day of this vlog, but maybe I don't know. I'm trying to think of any other good horse stories. I guess I have some vacation horse stories. We can chat about that. I don't know if I have any pictures or anything, but anyways, this is just like a horsey girl vlog minus any horseback riding, because like I said, not doing that anymore. But I'm gonna get back to reading, and I'll chat with you all later. Hello. I swear it's a different day. I just keep wearing this crew neck because I'm obsessed with it. But to give an update on Girls and Their Horses, I am doing pretty good. I am 200 pages into this book, so I'm about halfway done at this point. I have started tabbing it, and I have thoughts. romance. I'm loving the drama of this book. If you love reading about really snobby rich people, this is so your vibe. Like, the whole time I'm reading this book, I'm thinking about how Olivia from Olivia Reads a Latte loves rich people drama and rich people books, and I just feel like she would really enjoy this book. So like, if you have a similar reading taste to her and me, I think you would really enjoy this. And what I also love about this book is it's very accessible even if you're not from the horse world. There is definitely a lot of terms within the horse world that are just, there's so much. So this author is really making it really easy to understand what's going on and why this matters and certain things like that in respect to the horses, which is really nice. I'm really loving this book though. And the person who I thought was murdered, because we definitely are clued in that somebody has been murdered within the first chapter, and I have been suspecting it's been one of two people this whole book. And now I'm starting to think it's somebody else. And I do want to talk about my theory, but I'm not going to give you an answer as to whether that's right or wrong. So my theory is that the person who ends up dead is actually the trainer Kieran, I think his name is. I know his name, I promise. I just don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Kieran. It's Kieran. I think that's Kieran. We're gonna go with Kieran. So I kind of think it's him that ends up dead because none of the girls who ride at the barn like him. He's so mean and he is very picky about who he focuses his attention on, and he honestly seems kind of misogynistic. He only wants to focus on his male riders and he doesn't care about the girls that are working their butts off and want to go further in their training in the horse world, but he's just not putting in the time and effort in them as he is for the guys. So that's really interesting, and I kind of feel like he's the one who's gonna end up dead, especially because one of the girls in this book, her name is Vita, she is so creepy. She's like 17 or 18 and she has the most twisted mind ever. She is so resentful of Kieran and is so resentful of him being so obsessed with this new horse that is at the barn and is planning everything for this horse, but is not focusing any of attention on anybody else. And he also doesn't listen to her because like she has some ideas of like, hey, maybe I should be riding the new horse because I'm a better rider than Maple is, who's our main character, and that's her horse because she has this like multi-million-dollar horse that her parents bought her. And Kieran's like, absolutely not. There's also some really shady things that Kieran is doing to this multi-million-dollar horse. Like, he's drugging this horse before Maple even rides the horse, and he doesn't want her to corrupt this perfect specimen of a horse. This horse is like the best horse you've ever seen in your life. It can trot on a dime, it does circles perfectly, can clear the highest jumps. So Kieran does not want anybody to mess up this horse, and he's willing to drug this horse to make it seem like Maple's doing better than she really is. And it's just so messed up. Like, the horse world is truly so messed up in so many ways. Like, I can't even watch the Kentucky Derby anymore. I just feel so awful for those poor horses, and like, I know they love it. Like, you can see how much they love it. So it's not a matter of passion. It's a matter of people pushing these horses past what's reasonably the limit, you know? Anyways, so, oh, the drama is just amazing. Like, I love drama when it doesn't involve me or is not around me. So getting to read about, especially rich people drama, like rich people drama is the best kind of drama because it's so petty. Like, they're complaining about things being like, I don't know, $25 million. Like, excuse me, that doesn't even seem real. So quite loving this. It's so addicting, and I've been flying through the pages. Like, I've been reading like 50 or more pages a night, which is a lot for me on a weeknight. I normally don't get to read that much, but I just can't put it down, and I've been going to bed so late this week. It's only Tuesday, but I need to get more sleep. But this book, it's keeping me up because it's so good. So, but I just wanted to kind of give you all a little update on how it's going. I will try to update you all later on in the week with how it's going. Toodaloo. Hello friends. I have less than 50 pages left of Girls and Their Horses. So on page 352, this book is just 402 pages, so we're almost there. And this book reads so fast, and we're getting to the end, and My guess, I don't want to say anything about it, but it's interesting where things are going. I'm struggling to keep this spoiler free, but I will, I promise. So I'm gonna kind of go get ready for bed and then go lay in bed and read this. And once I finish it, I'll get up and come talk to you all. It's getting real wild, and I absolutely hate the husband in this book. He reminds me a lot of the husband from the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. He's very ignorant. He very much is not understanding the full situation of things and is not listening to his wife or his kids. It's like, dude, you need to be present. Like, what are you doing? And like, believe your spouse when she's telling you something instead of having to go talk to the men to understand the situation. Like, really? So we'll see how this all wraps up. I'm quite invested, and this book reads so incredibly quickly. I imagine I could just fly through it. So I will finish it and I will come back, give you all my late night thoughts, because it's almost 10 p.m. on a Friday, so like I'm a little brain dead, but like not brain dead enough to not finish this. So we're gonna finish this. I finished it. It only took me like 30 minutes to finish this book, which is crazy. Like 30 minutes to read 50 pages? Unheard of. So I really like this book. I really enjoyed returning to reading about like the very pretentious horse world, and oh my gosh, so many of the girls in this book were exactly the girls that were at the barn that I was riding at. So pretentious, so snippy, and like thinking themselves better than anybody else, and that's just like so accurate. I think this author really captures what the horse world is like. It's a really competitive, dangerous, kind of awful sport, but if you look past all the negativity of it, the connection between you and the horse and experiencing like the most amazing ride you can think of is like the best. Like really, we're here for the horses, not the drama and the mean girls. But I really enjoyed this. I think it was a great read. It did not go how I was expecting. I think the thriller elements were done really well. So many twists and turns, and I would be 100% sure about a twist and then it would go like 180 and go in a completely different direction. I really liked how it wrapped up. Like, I feel like it was a pretty happy ending considering it was a thriller and, you know, like people died, but it was really well done. I quite enjoyed it, and this author does have, I believe, 3 other books, maybe 2. I think it's 2 other books that I would really like to read, and I really enjoyed this. I think I want to give it 4 stars. Like, I truly really enjoyed it and had a great time reading it. And if you're a horsey girl, I would recommend this. Or if you want like a rich people drama thriller, would definitely recommend it for that as well. And the horse elements are definitely easy to understand even if you're not familiar with horses. There's definitely plenty of explanation on that. If that's something that's maybe holding you back, I would still recommend this even if you're not a horsey girl like me. So anyways, this was great. I'm really glad to have done this video. It took me a lot less time to read this than I thought. So that's it for the video. I hope you all enjoyed this goofy little vlog. I feel like it is kind of outside of like booktube norm. I feel like I talked a lot more about my past and like reminiscing more on things than talking about like books. But I think that's kind of fun. Like, this kind of reminds me a little bit of a video that like Kayla from Books and La would do, like with her childhood favorites. Only I'm talking about my childhood reading a book that I think 16-year-old me would have been reading if this book came out at the time. Like, I would definitely have read this. I probably would have enjoyed it just as much then as I do now. So that is it. Thank you all so very much for watching. If you made it this far into the vlog, comment some horse emojis, of course. And I will see you all in another video soon. Goodbye!